So how many people in here have gone down to downtown? Have been downtown Chicago? And how many people here have seen a play? How about music? Seen music performed, maybe in an auditorium or down at the Lenny Park? And how about, has anybody gone to a museum? Okay. Now, how about, has anybody, how many people in here have been out of the state? Wisconsin, California, anywhere, out of the state. And how many people in here have seen the ocean, any ocean? And how many people have been in a place in the world, could be in the suburbs, it could be in Mexico, it could be anywhere, that you looked up at the sky and you saw so many stars, you were blown away. Because you don't see that in the city, you all know that, right? And who in here has been out of the country? And who of you who haven't been out of the country plan to go out of the country at some point in your life? You're pretty sure you're going to get out of here. Okay. So now, would you be surprised if I told you that the amount of hands that were up during all of those questions would be the amount of hands that were down if you went to any school in South Chicago? Most of the kids have not been out of their neighborhood. Most of the kids have not gone downtown Chicago before. Most of the kids don't know that there's a lake 6 blocks away from them because there's a barrier, a fence that blocks them from the lake, and then there's land between that barrier, and they don't know that actually Lake Michigan is spitting distance from their homes, okay? So think about, imagine this. Now, I thought about this a lot last night, trying to figure out how I could kind of relay isolation, what it is to be isolated in a poor neighborhood. And you know, Chicago is a city of neighborhoods, small neighborhoods. It's not necessarily class. A lot of people in different neighborhoods stay in their neighborhoods. There's no reason to leave, you know? But then when you go into poorer neighborhoods, there's more isolation. There's more of the inability to feel like something's out there and I want to go get it. You just stay there. And so imagine this, that you're in a 10 by 10 block area and you have your school and you have your friends and your parents live there, grandparents, and maybe some of your aunts and uncles live there. Do you think you'd ever want to leave this area? Let's have a raise of hands. Anybody want to leave the area? See, when you get to your 20s and 30s, do you think you might want to get a job somewhere else? Maybe explore the world? Well, at least you have the choice. And I feel in working in neighborhoods like this that I'm not sure if the kids know that that choice is out there. And just imagine, I'm going to put you in the typical household in South Chicago. Imagine that your mom is single and that you have 5 brothers and sisters living in your house. Your mom is on aid, that means she makes $1,000 a month. That $1,000 a month pays for rent, utilities, partial food that's not covered by food stamps, and all your clothes, and bedding, cleaning supplies, all that. And what if you're a 6th grader, and in your school it was April, and you were on your 7th teacher for that year? You'd had 7 teachers already, because the class was so disruptive, the teachers didn't want to stay. And think about if you lived, like I said, 6 blocks from the lake and you didn't know it was there. And think about in your school, if you didn't have any computers. No computers, none. You didn't have theater, you didn't have music, you didn't have art, you didn't have gym, you didn't have recess. All you had was math, science, and reading. So this is what an average kid in South Chicago goes through. This is their opportunities. And not only that in the school in their neighborhood, but there's no after-school program. So when they get out of school, there's no park, there's no swing sets, there's no slides, there's no green space, there's no place to go. There's a public library that only lets a certain amount of kids. You can imagine how many of them are down there. It only lets a certain amount of kids in because it would be overrun. They have 4 computers, little community for the kids. And then there's a YMCA that charges $35 a month for membership for a family, which is probably an outrageous amount for someone who's only bringing in $1,000 a month. So think about all of that, and then I'm going to come back to that at the end. And this all isn't anything new to you. This might not be, but bear with me. Where do you learn to dream? Do you think you're born with it? Do you think it's something that you learn from your parents, your teachers? Like, where do dreams come from? Is it your environment? Is it your peers that say, I want to be a doctor, so you want to be a doctor? Is it competition? Is it exposure to different things? I think that everybody, if you ask them, they probably would have a dream. But when are those dreams attainable and realistic? When do you have that knowledge to know, like, maybe I'm not going to be a doctor? I kind of figured that out right away, that I wasn't good at science and that my reading skills were not good enough to do that. So I figured that out, but who told me that? Because a lot of kids in my neighborhood think that they're going to be things that I'm not sure that they could ever be in their lifetime, like a basketball star or rap singer. So when do you figure out that you're to find dreams that you can really attain in your life? I went to a school similar to Francis Parker. It was really small. My graduating class was 86. The top half of my class had a 4.0 or better. It was awful. I was not in the top half. I started in 4th grade. Almost everybody in my 4th grade class was in my graduating class, so we knew each other intimately. Now, it was a very rigorous school, but we had a great art department, and that's where I discovered myself. And that's where I met my teacher, Hazel Belvo. And in the art department, Hazel was someone who spoke to me like no one had ever spoken to me before. She reached me like no adult had ever reached me, and she urged me to explore myself and explore my artistic abilities. And I learned aesthetics and compassion and line and composure. I learned many things in that art room. And I think that she was the person who put me on the path that I needed to go on. And I can't tell you where I would be today if I hadn't gone on that path. After I graduated from school, I went to San Francisco and pursued a degree in communication arts. And in my senior year, decided that I was always resisting the real thing I wanted to do was being a teacher. I changed my major. I graduated with a BFA, Bachelor Degree of Fine Arts, and moved to New York City to teach kids in the Lower East Side housing projects. In public schools in New York, they don't have art, and so they hire galleries to go into the schools and teach. And a couple things happened to me there. I had these moments, which I'm hoping that maybe something in this speech gives you a moment where you think, huh, I thought about that. I had these moments where I lived in Brooklyn. Like I said, I worked in the Lower East Side. And I was walking down the street and this girl said, where'd you get those shoes? And I said, Manhattan. And she's like, oh, another world, right? And I thought, yeah, it is another world. Because you know what? She didn't go to Manhattan. She stayed in her neighborhood. There was no reason for her to go to Manhattan. Everything she needed was in the area that she lived in that 10 by 10 block area maybe. And then another thing happened to me. I was teaching, it was my second year in New York, and I was teaching in a school of 8th graders, and we were doing books of our lives, and we had not digital cameras, but the disposable cameras. And we had in the back of the book, they would do a map of their neighborhood, just so we could know where they lived. And the kids were like, why are you having us do this? And we thought, well, if you're sick someday, then someone will know where to get to you. You should know where you live. So at first I said, well, what's your street? The kid's like 36 Avenue A. And I said, so what street do you live on? He's like, I don't know. It's like, you live on Avenue A. And then I said, well, what are the streets around you? And he's like, well, there's no street signs. I said, okay, go home today, walk around the street and write down what street signs are. Because they were living in this world, but they weren't aware of what was going on around them. So he came back, wrote down the streets. I pointed out to the East River, which you could see outside of all